Well, hi, it's Dr. Rebecca Cardona here with Fear No Thing or Fear Nothing Coaching. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about intuition. Intuition is something that I definitely use in my practice when I'm coaching, but also that I coach on with clients. So, what is intuition, right? Intuition is truly an inner sight. And, I often refer to it as soul connection or a soul gift. So, inner sight, not so much with our eyes, but more so with the physical body and the mind. So, have you ever had a gut feeling like, gosh, my gut's just telling me that I know, or I need to follow my gut? Well, that's intuition. And that's how intuition shows up in the physical body. And how it shows up in the mind is through vision. Again, not necessarily through the eyes, like seeing, but more so like a tape that plays, something that you can see or you can see happening or you envision happening. So tuition is inner sight that shows up in the physical body and in the mind. Its outcomes are tremendous. So if we use our tuition, if we learn to trust our tuition and tap into our tuition, then we're able to tap into the outcomes of clarity. We're able to tap into the outcomes of wisdom. We're able to tap into the outcomes of vision, trusting ourselves, and also trusting that I've talked about that before, being able to trust yourself and being able to trust that And intuition can be used in our personal lives, in our relationships, but it also can be used in our professional lives, in levels of creativity or strategy or envisioning, ways around difficulties or challenges. And in my coaching practice, I definitely work off of the philosophy that we have everything that we need right inside of us, right? And oftentimes we're not able to tap into that. Let's say that if you're not able to tap into your intuition, it's because we're not connected to it. So a lot of my coaching, I work on reconnecting to that intuition, reconnecting to trusting that reconnecting to trusting that you can trust yourself. And that definitely does bring the outcomes of clarity, wisdom, and vision. And my clients, no doubt, would be able to support that in their lives. So again, like anything, you think of like a soccer coach or a basketball coach or a football coach, it's a skill, right? Intuition is a skill in which we've got to be able to practice so that we can really be able to benefit from those outcomes. Because if we're not practicing it and we're not using it, then we're definitely not going to develop it. And we're definitely not going to trust it. And we're definitely not going to have the outcomes, right? The outcomes of clarity, wisdom, and vision, trusting the self and trusting that we know. So definitely it's a skill that's got to be practiced. Oftentimes, when I work with people, they have had a disconnect in their intuition. And they don't trust it and they don't trust themselves. And so what causes that disconnect from our intuition, right? You've heard me talk about this many times. It's more than likely a trauma, a challenge, or a hardship, or all three of those that have been experienced in life that have kind of disconnected an individual from being able to lean into that intuition, being able to lean into that inner sight and that clarity and trust it. And so, when I work with individuals that want to reconnect with that intuition, I often give them the metaphor of us being able to be in perfect balance, right? I talk a lot about balance. But when it comes to intuition, you can see this in very young children. There's a beautiful balance between what I call the human self, which is actually the human part of us, the body, right? And the brain that navigates this human experience. But there's also a soul self that's a part of us. So the human self carries our human DNA, the physical DNA, and the soul self carries our soul DNA, our gifts, our talents, what we were intended to do and our purpose on this earth and this journey and the mark that we're intended to leave. So when I talk about intuition, I often talk about it as a soul connection, like I said, or soul gift. So when I talk about what disconnects us from that, balance between the human self and the soul self, and the human self being able to navigate with the soul selves, it usually most oftentimes is, like I said, a trauma, a challenge, or a hardship that we've experienced in life that's disconnected us. And when we experience those traumas, those challenges, or those hardships, what oftentimes happen is that human self, out of protection and survival and the need to get through, grabs the hand of the soul self and takes off. And because it's doing it out of protection. And what happens to the soul self is oftentimes it gets silenced. We're not connected to that, right? Like I said, we're not connected to that intuition, that clarity, that wisdom, that vision that is there. We just learned through hardships, challenges, or traumas not to trust it. So that's what gets in the way of our intuition. And if you're struggling with your inner side and your intuition, more than likely you've had some type of life experience in the form of a trauma, a challenge, or a hardship that has not taken your intuition. It's just disconnected you from it. And what I would tell you is you absolutely can reconnect to your intuition. Again, it's a skill that you would have to practice. And I do that oftentimes in my coaching with clients. So that kind of sums up our talk today on intuition. You do have inner sight. It definitely is a gift, a soul gift, and the soul connection. And you definitely can experience clarity and wisdom and vision and trusting yourself and trusting that if you're not. So if you've got vision, if you've got intuition and you're using it, great. If you want to reconnect to it, please do. And don't hesitate to reach out if you think that I could be some help in that. All right. So it is Dr. Rebecca Cardona here with Fear No Thing or Fear Nothing Coaching.